Hey guys, we're back with another video breakdown. We got Coach Tori here. We're going to talk about protecting the goal area, more specifically from the advanced half space. It's very difficult for goalkeepers to be able to navigate this situation because of the proximity to goal and the amount of variables that go into each play, but also the number of decisions or options that the attacker has in this situation. And quite often, I think opponents are trying to get into this area because this is also called the optimal assist zone, which means if you are bringing balls back across into a central area from this position on the field, it is a very likely chance that you're going to score. So, as goalkeepers, how do we protect this area? And Tori, this is something that you have been particularly interested in this fall.
Yeah, I think this is something that you see as the level progresses, and like as you continue to level up from maybe youth to club to college and beyond. And it's an area that we kind of focused and highlighted a lot this fall, as a lot of our opponents were trying to get into that half space or just kind of create some kind of uncertainty for both our back line and our goalkeeper in that area. So this is one of my favorite clips, one of my favorite saves that Coach Katie made this season. It was one of our early non-conference games, and as the clip plays, you're going to see the ball advance from the half space into a little bit less of a certain area for a shot from close range. So she starts off by kind of driving in like she's going to go end line. I think a small nuance that you also have to consider as a goalkeeper is the defensive pressure that's on the ball and in the area. As the ball goes deeper to the end line, we talk a lot about proximity to near post. Am I coming forward to be butt level? Am I going to have a more open body shape because they're not quite end line and they're more towards, like, if we're talking height of 18, higher on the 18, and I need to be worried about protecting the goal first. So kind of inching her way into that position. And then as the attacker cuts it back onto her inside foot, not that outside foot closer to the end line, it goes from, okay, I can protect my near post, to I have to be in a more angled body position because she could shoot this. There's great defensive pressure from both center backs. However, what that does is leave freedom for a person to receive the ball. And Coach Katie kind of realizes, well, I'm not going to make a save on this first play, but it doesn't mean that I can cheat and just get centralized in the goal. And she follows the ball as it travels backwards to the person who ultimately ends up having a one-time shot, which I also think is, what typically is happening in these zones. Once the ball is played back, it's going to be one time. So goalkeepers have to make a hard decision on that as well. Can I maybe be impactful and come out and press it? Or do I have to, get back in the frame of my goal, find where that shooter is, and get set to react? And I think that's something that she does really well to kind of adjust her positioning and ultimately make a clear cut decision on the final action as well.
Hmm. Okay. Now, what happens when the ball is like just in that gray area that's like just outside of maybe the advanced half space, but we're still not all the way, we're not truly toward the sideline where it's like a legitimately um, flank service from distance. It's a bit more on that gray. Am I near to the post because I need to protect the front post? How are you guys talking about this, and how are you managing these situations?
Yeah, I think gray is the perfect way to describe this situation. You're not quite in a flank service, but you're also not in the half space, and you're potentially could be a cutback, but more likely, if I'm an attacker, I'm probably wanting to flight this as well. So something we talked a lot about is as the ball's dropping down towards the end line, that kind of can adjust where you get set vertically off your line.
Hmm.
And as you inch in towards the half space from flank and sideline to half space, that's when you would know to like pull yourself more towards your near post as well. So something in this clip that I just love is the open body shape that Coach Katie has, as well as her awareness and where she can position herself. I think her strength has to be considered in this as well, because it would be different from maybe a 5'8" goalkeeper to a 6'1" goalkeeper like herself. She knows aerially she's comfortable,
Hmm.
and she knows she'd like to handle this in that way if possible, but she also knows that she can't just cheat and give up a full near post or an opportunity for them to go end line. So she has an open body shape. She's off her near post, and as the attacker kind of like takes that separating touch of I'm going to hit this, that's when she decides, all right, well, here's my final positioning and here's where I'll impact the ball. Because she hits it near post, and she's not so far deep for just a pure flank aerial service. She's able to easily come forward and collect the ball. However, if she did end up serving that more into like a centralized position or beyond uh, the shoulder of the goalkeeper, I think her positioning allows her to still come onto the ball with controlled steps and maybe meet that ball with a punch or the ability to catch it.
So my question is a lot of people will say that, and maybe not a lot, but some people will say she should be square and she should be thinking about that shot at the near post. In your experience at the college level, in the conference that you play in, how many times would the attacker have the ability to shoot from there and truly challenge the goalkeeper? I'm not saying some kind of shot you could trap with your foot, right? I'm
Right.
saying in a position where she's going to shoot from there and Katie has no opportunity to make the save from where she is now. How many times out of 100 do you think that would occur?
Out of 100, maybe like 5. I
Yeah.
think it's pretty limited, and I think by setting that way early, you limit your ability to be impactful in protecting the area in particular, which for me in this position, as the ball is in the advance slash the half space in general, you have to be mindful of the shot. Yes, that might be your first priority, but you also need to be mindful of protecting the area. And you want to tip the scales in your favor. And I think that's also where it comes down to being important, knowing your skill set as a goalkeeper. Like, what's your
Mhm.
skill set and how can you tip it into what you might be really good at as well? So,
Right.
kind of being in this position allows her, yes, if you drive forward, to get in that more square position to deal with and manage a cutback or maybe a shot on the near post. But also being in this position makes it comfortable to manage something that might be served in beyond rather than just fully giving one thing up.
Right. I still think if this player were to shoot at the near post and even with such venom and pace that Katie could still make that save from here. And even where she is set right now, using her explosiveness and her length, her range to be able to make that save.
Right, because you have time to travel as the ball travels, and I
Right.
think that can't be overlooked.
Right. Okay, let's go on to the next one. So this next one, I think probably we would admit there are some good things about this clip and maybe a couple things that we might want to slightly alter.
Yep. So ball comes in, and I think there is, we would say, back pressure, slight back pressure. Defenders, I wouldn't say are really impacting this all that much. And something that's important to note is this is off a transition moment against the number one team in our league, who is both skilled and super athletic. So in transition moments, I would consider them the most dangerous. So, having to retreat and find your position off of this, where you were, a little higher off your line, and then decide. I think ultimately, there needs to be more of a decision from Katie of where she's trying to get set and when. But again, I think um, the nature of like how the play occurs kind of is a factor.
Mhm.
But as that ball travels deeper, this becomes a little bit more of an early cross. I would consider this more of like a true flank service
Mhm.
and something where maybe she could fare to be a bit vertically higher to be more impactful.
Yeah, and maybe just a little bit more balance as that's happening, right? And potentially move back quicker so
Yes.
that she can have more time to organize her body,
Yeah,
but still.
absolutely. Because your body shape is just as important as, where you decide to position yourself in these moments.
Mhm. All right, we got one more. All right, so talk to us initially off of what you see here from a throw-in.
So immediately in, ball goes backwards, which, typically you'd be probably in this moment organizing, trying to get your line up. And I think for me, positioning isn't terrible in terms of where she is positioned, like height wise. I'm okay with vertical positioning, but I think maybe you could fare to be a little bit deeper. And the reason you could be deeper here is because the ball is going backwards and it's so wide. She's
Mhm.
also receiving on her right foot. And if she was to cut it in onto her left, you would still have time to readjust your positioning to get in more of a protect the goal type situation. But as this ball then goes backwards once more, little step backward you see from Katie in this moment, but I think it could be even more so because she's going to have to serve this from this particular region until or if she was able to cut in more towards the actual half space.
Mhm.
But again, I think it's really important to note that on these types of services, just because it's going towards the byline doesn't mean you have to automatically go out towards your near post and get squared up, because
Mhm.
you can just as easily protect the area with the shape you have now and have the ability to move forward in your near post as you see under pressure as well. You just have to make sure your line is beating that defender and you're decisive with where you're going to come and win the ball.
One more thing I wanna point out, some small little nuance, it has nothing to do with goalkeeping, but defending is that oh, no, sorry. Is that on this play, you can see this player can see this runner, right?
Hmm.
And this player is on this center back's blind side. So
Right.
this player should be, like, telling this center back, "Hey," coming through or whatever language that defenders use, and
Mhm.
this center back should be immediately putting their hands out, because the hands out will allow you to, 1, feel where the pressure is coming from, so you know where they are and you can seal them off. But 2, it impedes the run of the attacker, so giving Katie more time to get to the ball. So that's something that you guys would want to communicate to your defenders in training situations, so that that you have more time to come and collect the ball, because I think a big misconception on crosses is win the ball as high as possible, but we can see in this clip, it never gets high. We
Right.
wanna win the ball as early as possible, because that eliminates the opponent's opportunity to get a nick on the ball before we can get there. So having that relationship with your defenders where you're making sure that they're impeding the run of attackers is something that's really important for you and can help you make simpler, more easy saves and navigate traffic a little bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you make a fantastic point, because the more we can kind of communicate and organize, the more you can make your job feel a little bit simple for yourself in those moments. And I think it's also one of the underrated aspects of these moments when you're talking aerial services, cutbacks, or really trying to deny a service into the 18 in general, because you don't necessarily know what's going on behind you, but you have to have a
Mhm.
general idea if you want to set yourself up for success with winning the ball.
Yeah. I think this is an important conversation because, um, crossing positioning and shape, I think, are the 2 most important elements of protecting the goal area to set us up to be able to, impact multiple outcomes, right? That is the aim, is impact multiple outcomes. And to your point is the positioning and the shape is going to also depend on the player's capabilities and competencies, right? And so that positioning might work for Katie really well, but it might be slightly different for someone like you or I, right? And
Right.
it is important ultimately that we position ourselves where we can impact multiple outcomes. Even if the ball was on the end line, we want to be able to impact the shot. We want to be as preventative as possible to maybe claim those lower targeted passes. We want to be preventative in terms of being aggressive, be able to come off our line and get into like a phase 2 spread if we can, if someone's on the near post. We want to still be able to impact multiple outcomes. So our positioning, our balance, our shape are the most important things in those situations, and something that goalkeepers are going to have to explore and ask a lot of questions. I don't think it's necessarily black and white for every person and every player. Um, but ultimately, we just want to make sure that we make decisions that align with our objective, which is to impact multiple outcomes, and 2, our competencies.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Awesome, Tori. Well, this was a great breakdown. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and some clips from your fall season with Katie. And we look forward to the next one.
Thank you.